When my fiancé, Jordan, suggested we postpone the wedding, I didn't question it at first. We were sitting on our worn-out couch in the apartment we'd shared for the past 2 years. His voice was steady but carried an edge of discomfort, like he was navigating a conversation he'd rehearsed in his head. With everything going on right now, he began, running a hand through his dark hair, I just think we need to be realistic. Weddings are expensive, you know? I just don't want to start our life together drowning in debt. I nodded, understanding the logic. Jordan had always been the practical one between us. Where I'd dream about flower arrangements and fairy lights, he'd worry about the price tags attached to each element. His concern for our future finances made sense, but something about the timing felt off. We'd been saving for this wedding for over a year, and while we weren't swimming in cash, we were stable. Still, I didn't want to push back. Weddings weren't the kind of thing you forced, especially when one partner wasn't fully ready. Okay, I said finally, my tone light despite the sinking feeling in my chest. We can wait. But it's just a postponement, right? Not a cancellation. Of course, he assured me quickly, reaching out to squeeze my hand. His smile was soft, and for a moment, my doubts melted away. But over the next few weeks, cracks started to form in the perfect picture I'd tried to paint in my head. Jordan wasn't just avoiding wedding plans. He was avoiding me. He'd stay late at work more often than usual, his excuses growing flimsier each time. I'd wake up to find his side of the bed empty, his phone suspiciously locked with a new passcode. My best friend, Mia, noticed my unease during one of our weekly brunches. You've barely touched your waffles, she pointed out, her fork paused midair. What's going on? I hesitated, not wanting to seem paranoid. But Mia had been with me through every major life event, from high school heartbreaks to college chaos. If there was anyone I could trust, it was her. It's Jordan, I admitted, pushing a blueberry around my plate. He wants to postpone the wedding, says it's for financial reasons. But I don't know. He's been acting weird lately. Distant. Mia's expression darkened, her sharp instincts kicking in. Weird how? Like, secretive weird, or I'm just stressed weird? I shrugged, struggling to articulate the gnawing anxiety that had taken root in my chest. Both, maybe? He's working late a lot, and he's been locking his phone. I don't know if I'm overthinking or if there's something I should be worried about. Mia leaned forward, her voice low but firm. Trust your gut. If something feels off, it probably is. Have you talked to him about it? I've tried, I said, my voice faltering. But every time I bring it up, he brushes it off or gets defensive. I don't want to push him away even more. Mia didn't look convinced. Listen, I'm not saying he's doing anything shady, but you deserve answers. This is your fiancé, not some casual boyfriend. If he's not being honest with you, that's a problem. Her words stayed with me long after brunch. That night, as I lay awake in bed, listening to the faint hum of Jordan's car pulling into the driveway, I made a decision. I wasn't going to sit in the dark, hoping for answers to magically appear. If Jordan wasn't willing to tell me the truth, I'd have to find it myself. The opportunity came sooner than I expected. The next evening, Jordan forgot his phone on the kitchen counter while he took a shower. My heart raced as I picked it up, my hands trembling. I wasn't proud of what I was about to do, but the nagging doubt in my mind wouldn't let me rest. His passcode was new, but not impossible to guess. After a few attempts, I cracked it. My heart pounded in my chest as I navigated to his messages, half expecting to find nothing and half dreading what I might uncover. And then I saw it. A string of texts with a contact saved as Sam that made my stomach drop. The messages were vague but intimate, filled with inside jokes and references to places I didn't recognize. The most recent text was from earlier that day. Can't wait to see you tonight. Usual spots. Before I could process what I was reading, I heard the shower turn off. Panicking, I locked the phone and placed it back on the counter, retreating to the living room just as Jordan emerged from the bathroom. Hey, he said casually, his hair damp and a towel slung over his shoulder. What's for dinner? I forced a smile, my mind racing. I thought we could order in. Pizza sound good. Perfect, he said, kissing my forehead before heading to the bedroom to change. As soon as he was out of sight, I grabbed my own phone and texted Mia. "We need to talk. I think something's really wrong." The words felt heavy as I hit send, but I knew one thing for sure. I couldn't ignore the truth any longer. By the time Mia arrived at my apartment the next day, I was a bundle of nerves. She walked in, balancing a box of donuts and 2 coffees, her expression equal parts curiosity and concern. "All right, spill," she said, dropping the treats on the kitchen counter. "What did you find?" I hesitated, the words lodging in my throat. Saying it out loud made it too real. But Mia wasn't one to let me off the hook. She raised an eyebrow, and I caved. "There's someone named Sam," I began, lowering my voice as though Jordan might hear, even though he wasn't home. "They've been texting. It's not friendly." Mia's eyes widened. "Sam? Are we talking Samantha or Samuels?" I shook my head. "I don't know." The messages were vague but intimate. Inside jokes, plans to meet up. "Last night," Sam said, "can't wait to see you." He didn't come home late last night, but I'm terrified to even guess what it means. Mia sipped her coffee, her mind clearly spinning. "Okay, let's not jump to conclusions. Sam could be anyone. It might not even be romantic. But you need clarity. You deserve to know what's going on." I nodded, though my stomach churned at the thought of confronting Jordan. "What do I do? Do I just ask him? What if he lies?" "Then don't give him the chance," Mia said, her voice sharp. "If he's meeting up with this Sam person, follow him. See where he's going. That way, you'll have real answers." The idea made my pulse race. Spying on my fiancé felt extreme, but so did ignoring the sinking feeling in my gut. That evening, I didn't have to wait long. Jordan came home, showered and changed into jeans and a clean button-down, a noticeable upgrade from his usual sweatpants and hoodie combo. "Heading out for a bit," he said casually, grabbing his keys. "Work things?" I asked, keeping my tone neutral. "Yeah, last minute," he replied, avoiding eye contact. The door clicked shut behind him, and I sprung into action. I grabbed my coat, slipped on my sneakers, and followed at a safe distance. My heart hammered in my chest as I tailed his car through the city streets. He wasn't heading toward his office or any familiar place. Instead, he pulled into the parking lot of a dimly lit bar on the outskirts of town. I parked a few spaces away and watched as he walked inside. My palms were sweaty, and my mind raced with worst-case scenarios. After a few minutes, I worked up the courage to follow. The bar was small and crowded, the kind of place where the lighting was low enough to obscure faces and the music was just loud enough to drown out private conversations. I scanned the room, my eyes darting over groups of laughing friends and couples nestled into dark corners. Then I saw him. Jordan was sitting at a booth near the back, his body angled toward the person across from him. Sam. My heart dropped as I took in the scene. Sam wasn't a man or a woman. Sam was a teenage boy, probably no older than 16. He had shaggy brown hair and wore a hoodie that looked 2 sizes too big. They were talking animatedly, their heads close together, as if they were sharing secrets. I ducked behind a nearby pillar, my mind reeling. This wasn't what I'd expected. Who was this kid, and why was Jordan meeting him in secret? I stayed hidden, watching as Jordan handed the boy an envelope. Sam took it, stuffing it into his hoodie pocket before sliding out of the booth. He left the bar without looking back, and Jordan stayed seated, rubbing his temples like he was under some kind of enormous pressure. I waited until Sam was out of sight before approaching Jordan's booth. He didn't notice me until I was standing right in front of him. "Care to explain what that was about?" I asked, my voice sharper than I intended. Jordan's head snapped up, his eyes wide with shock. "What are you doing here?" "Following you," I said bluntly. "Since you won't tell me the truth, I figured I'd find it myself." He groaned, running a hand down his face. "This isn't what you think." "Then what is it?" I demanded, crossing my arms. "Because from where I'm standing, it looks like you're sneaking around, meeting some kid, and handing him money. What's going on, Jordan's?" He hesitated, the weight of the moment pressing down on him. Finally, he gestured for me to sit. "His name is Sam," Jordan began, his voice low. "He's my son." The words hit me like a freight train. I stared at him, my mind struggling to process what he'd just said. "You're what?" "My son," he repeated, his voice heavy with regret. "It happened years before I met you. I didn't even know he existed until a few months ago. His mom, Amy, never told me. She reached out recently, said she needed help. Financial help." I was stunned into silence. Jordan had a son? And he'd been hiding it from me this whole time? "Why didn't you tell me?" I asked finally, my voice trembling. "Because I didn't know how," he admitted, his eyes pleading with mine. "I was trying to figure out what to do, how to help him without turning your world upside down. I didn't want to hurt you, but I see now that keeping this from you was the wrong choice." I leaned back in the booth, my mind spinning. The financial strain, the secret meetings, the late nights, it all made sense now. But the betrayal cut deep. He hadn't trusted me enough to share this part of his life, and that felt impossible to ignore. "Do you have any idea how this feels?" I asked, my voice cracking. "To think you're lying, cheating, only to find out you've been keeping an entirely different life from me?" Jordan reached for my hand, but I pulled away. "I'm sorry," he said earnestly. "I didn't mean for it to happen this way. I wanted to protect you." "I don't need protection, Jordan," I said, standing up. "I need honesty. And right now, I don't know if I can trust you anymore." I left the bar before he could say another word, my heart heavy with the weight of a secret. As I drove home, a million questions swirled in my mind. How could he have kept this from me? And more importantly, where did we go from here? When I got home, the silence felt heavier than ever. The walls of our apartment seemed to close in, suffocating me with the weight of Jordan's confession. I sank onto the couch, staring blankly at the faint scuff marks on the coffee table, 1,000 thoughts spinning through my head. He had a son, a whole son, and he'd kept it from me, lied to me for months. My emotions churned between anger and heartbreak, betrayal and confusion. The man I was supposed to marry, the man I thought I knew inside and out, had been living a double life. Mia called as I sat there, the ringtone jolting me back to reality. I debated letting it go to voicemail, but I needed someone to anchor me. "Did you talk to him?" she asked the moment I picked up. I let out a shaky breath.
"Yeah."
"He told me everything. Or at least I think he did."
"Okay, slow down."
"What's everything?" I swallowed hard. "He has a son. A teenage son. Apparently, he didn't know about him until a few months ago. The kid's mom reached out, asking for help. That's who he's been sneaking around to meet." Mia was silent for a beat, processing.
"Wow."
"That's not what I expected. Are you okay?" "Honestly? No," I admitted. "I feel like the ground's been ripped out from under me. He lied to me, Mia. For months. How am I supposed to move forward with someone I can't even trust?" "I get it," she said gently. "But before you make any big decisions, you need to figure out if this is something you can forgive. Jordan messed up, big time, but maybe he was scared. Maybe he didn't know how to handle it." Her words were logical, but they didn't soothe the ache in my chest. After we hung up, I sat there for hours, replaying every moment from the past few months, searching for signs I'd missed. How had I been so blind? Jordan came home around midnight, his keys jangling loudly in the quiet apartment. I stayed on the couch, my arms crossed, waiting for him to say something. "I didn't know if you'd be here," he admitted, setting his keys on the counter. "Where else would I be?" My voice was colder than I intended, but I didn't try to soften it. He sat across from me, his face lined with exhaustion. "I know you're furious with me. You have every right to be. But please, let me explain." "You've already explained," I snapped. "You have a son and you didn't tell me. What else is there to say?" "A lot," he said, leaning forward. "I didn't find out about Sam until Amy, his mom, contacted me. She told me she'd kept it from me because she didn't think I'd want to be involved. But now, she's in a bad spot. Financially, emotionally, everything. She said Sam needs stability, and she thought it was time for me to step up." I bit my lip, holding back a surge of anger. "And you decided to do that without involving me? Without even giving me the courtesy of knowing what was going on in my own relationship?" Jordan's shoulders slumped. I didn't know how to tell you. I didn't want to ruin what we have. Well, congratulations, I said bitterly. You ruined it anyway. He flinched, the words hitting their mark. For a moment, neither of us spoke. Then he looked at me, his eyes raw with emotion. I love you, he said quietly. That hasn't changed. I made a mistake, but everything I've done, everything, was because I didn't want to lose you. Tears stung my eyes, but I refused to let them fall. Love isn't just about protecting someone from the truth, Jordan. It's about trust, and you broke that. I know, he said, his voice cracking. And I'll do whatever it takes to earn it back. Just don't give up on us. Please. His words hung in the air, heavy with desperation. I wanted to believe him, to forgive him, but the wound was still too fresh. I need time, I said finally, standing up. I can't just pretend everything's okay. Not right now. Jordan nodded, his face a mix of relief and heartbreak. Take all the time you need, he said softly. I'll be here. I packed a bag that night and went to Mia's. She didn't ask questions, just handed me a blanket and let me crash on her couch. Over the next few days, I threw myself into work, trying to distract myself from the chaos of my personal life. But Jordan's words lingered in the back of my mind. It wasn't until a week later that I decided to take a step toward answers. If I was going to make a decision about my future with Jordan, I needed the full picture. That meant meeting Sam. Jordan was surprised when I called and told him I wanted to meet his son. Are you sure? He asked, his tone cautious. Yes, I said firmly. If we're going to figure this out, I need to know what I'm dealing with. We arranged to meet at a park near Amy's house. When I arrived, I spotted Jordan sitting on a bench, Sam beside him. The boy looked nervous, fidgeting with the strings on his hoodie. Hey, Jordan said, standing as I approached. He looked hesitant, like he wasn't sure if I was going to bolt. I nodded, forcing a smile. Hi, Sam. I'm Emily. Hi, he mumbled, barely glancing up. I sat down, unsure how to start. Sam wasn't what I expected. He seemed quiet, almost shy. For a few minutes, we made small talk, but eventually I couldn't hold back. So, I said gently, your dad tells me you're into soccer? Sam nodded, his eyes lighting up slightly.
Yeah.
I play forward. That's awesome, I said, genuinely impressed. Maybe Jordan, your dad, will finally have someone to watch sports with. I've never been much of a fan. Sam cracked a small smile, and for the first time, I saw a glimpse of the boy Jordan had been trying to protect. As we talked, I began to understand the weight Jordan had been carrying. Sam wasn't just some secret. He was a scared kid caught in a tough situation. And while I was still hurt by Jordan's choices, I couldn't ignore the bond forming between them, or the responsibility Jordan felt. When we left the park, Jordan walked me to my car. Thank you for coming, he said quietly. I nodded, my heart still heavy. This doesn't fix everything, Jordan, but it's a start. I'll take it, he said, his voice filled with hope. As I drove away, I realized that rebuilding our relationship wouldn't be easy. But maybe, just maybe, it was possible. Over the next few weeks, my life felt like a delicate balancing act. I went back to the apartment after a few days at Mia's, but things between Jordan and me were strained. We moved around each other like strangers trying to remember how to coexist, and every conversation felt like stepping onto a minefield. Despite the tension, Jordan made an effort. He was more open than I'd ever seen him, sharing details about his past with Amy, how they met in college, how their relationship fizzled out, and how blindsided he'd been by her call about Sam. He explained the financial strain he'd been under, how Amy wasn't just asking for emotional involvement, but financial help for Sam's education, therapy, and other expenses she couldn't manage on her own. It was a lot to process, but I tried to keep an open mind. I could see Jordan was trying, but trust wasn't something you could rebuild overnight. One afternoon, as I sorted through some paperwork at home, I found myself staring at our wedding invitations, still in their unopened box. They'd been delivered the week Jordan told me about postponing the wedding. At the time, I'd been crushed, but now, looking at them, I wasn't sure what I felt anymore. I didn't want to make a decision about the wedding or our relationship, until I knew where we truly stood. To do that, I needed to understand not just Jordan's new reality, but mine as well. Let's have dinner, I told Jordan that night. You, me, and Sam. I want to spend more time with him. If we're going to move forward, I need to know what this new version of our life might look like. Jordan looked surprised but nodded. Okay, I'll ask Amy if Sam's free this weekend. When Saturday came, I was a ball of nerves. I'd spend the day cooking something simple but hearty: spaghetti and meatballs, garlic bread, and a big salad. I wanted Sam to feel welcome, but I also wanted the evening to feel normal, like we weren't walking on eggshells. Sam arrived with Jordan, his hands stuffed into his hoodie pockets, his face a mix of curiosity and awkwardness. I greeted him warmly, trying to ease the tension, and he gave me a shy smile in return. Dinner started off quiet, with the clinking of silverware filling the gaps in conversation. But slowly, Sam began to open up. He talked about school, his friends, and his dreams of playing professional soccer someday. I asked questions, genuinely interested, and by the time dessert rolled around, homemade brownies, he was laughing at one of Jordan's terrible dad jokes. For the first time, I saw the potential of what this new dynamic could be. It wouldn't be easy, and it would take time, but there was something about the way Sam looked at Jordan, like he was finally starting to trust him, that made me think it might be worth the effort. After Sam left, Jordan and I sat together on the couch. The silence between us felt different this time, not strained, but reflective. Thank you, he said quietly. For what? For giving him a chance. For giving us a chance, he said, reaching for my hand. I know I've made a mess of things, but I don't want to lose you. I'll do whatever it takes to prove to you that you can trust me again. I looked at him, seeing the vulnerability in his eyes. For the first time in weeks, I felt the tiniest glimmer of hope. I'm not ready to make any big decisions yet, I admitted. But tonight, it was a step in the right direction. Jordan nodded, his grip on my hand tightening slightly, like he was afraid to let go. In the days that followed, I found myself thinking more and more about what our future might look like. I thought about the wedding invitations still sitting in their box, about the plans we'd made and the life we'd envisioned. None of it looked the same anymore, but that didn't mean it couldn't still be something beautiful. One evening, as I walked into the living room, I found Jordan sitting on the floor, flipping through a photo album. He glanced up when he saw me and gestured for me to join him. These are from college, he said, pointing to a picture of himself and a young woman I assumed was Amy. I thought it might help if you saw where I'm coming from. I sat beside him, studying the photos. Amy was pretty, with a bright smile and kind eyes. There were pictures of her and Jordan at parties, studying together, and even one where they were goofing around in matching Halloween costumes. You really cared about her, I said softly. I did, he admitted. But we were young, and it didn't last. She moved on, and so did I. When she called me about Sam, it was like being thrown back into a life I thought I'd left behind. We sat in silence for a while, flipping through the pages. Then Jordan turned to me, his expression serious. I know this isn't what you signed up for, he said. And if you decide you can't do this, I'll understand. But if you're willing to try, I promise I'll never keep anything from you again. No more secrets. No more lies. His words hung in the air, and I felt a lump rise in my throat. I don't know if I can just forget everything that's happened, I said honestly. But I don't want to walk away without trying. I love you, Jordan. I need us to rebuild this together. Relief washed over his face, and for the first time in weeks, I felt like we were truly on the same page. We decided to start small, focusing on the day-to-day rather than making any big decisions about the wedding or the future. I spent more time with Sam, slowly getting to know him, and I began to see glimpses of the life we might have as a family. One afternoon, as I watched Sam and Jordan kick a soccer ball around the park, I felt a strange sense of peace. Life didn't always go according to plan, but sometimes the unexpected detours led to something even better. When Jordan jogged over, out of breath but grinning, he handed me the ball. Your turn, he said, his eyes sparkling with a playfulness I hadn't seen in weeks. I laughed, standing up and joining them on the field. In that moment, I realized something important. Love wasn't about perfection. It was about resilience, about choosing to fight for each other even when things got messy. And as I kicked the ball back to Sam, his laughter ringing out across the field, I knew that maybe, just maybe, we could make this work.